Okay, it is 7:04 p.m. Thursday, November the 11th, 2021. Celebrate Veterans Day today. It's kind of interesting. I didn't realize it was a holiday um, because I've been working. But anyway, welcome to week number 1, also known as Open House for Constitutional Law. Among my classes, this is one of the most exciting classes that I have a chance to teach because we concentrate a lot on the 4th and 5th Amendment of the Constitution, which is, and the 6th. These are amendments that are very critical in criminal justice, along with the 8th Amendment. So we'll be dealing with those during the course of the next 5.5 weeks. And so I'm going to go ahead and share with you today my expectations, and then we'll go from there. Okay, let's share my screen. Okay, immediately you see the home page, and we have the messages here, and then the grade book, which this is where I access your written assignments. I see one person has done the written assignment already, and then discussion posts. As you know, discussion posts are due this week, day after tomorrow, or Saturday. Normally, the initial post will be due Tuesdays and Saturdays, and we'll talk about that when we get to the calendar. And then your live classroom submission, which is the key phrase I give you today. So it's pretty light. Most of this class is pretty light, so we have a chance to discuss a wide variety of topics. So today, the Constitutional Foundation for Criminal Justice, your written assignment, we'll get into that. So while I'm at it, let's look at the calendar. So for the month, that's my view. I like to see the course started yesterday, and the open house lecture, it said today. Actually, it's not today. It's supposed to be the 11th. Let's fix that. That might be why students aren't here. Okay. So let's go back to the month view. Okay, so the course started yesterday. So the open house live lecture is today, the 11th. And I thought, okay, when we see the announcements, we'll see it. Then your posts are due Saturday the 13th. And then your key phrase is due Sunday the 14th, along with your written. You can see starting next week that your lectures will be on Mondays at 7 o'clock. So the 15th, all the way for the rest of the course, it will be on Mondays. Your initial post will be due Tuesdays. Okay. So let me go back, and I want to see how that happened. I don't know. Okay, let's go. Before I move forward, I want to go and see what I put in here for the live lecture. I thought I put in here. Yep, says the 11th here. Okay. Let's see what the announcements are. Let's start with the welcome announcement. Thursday, just like I thought. And starting next week, Monday. So I have it right in the announcement. We'll come back to that in a minute. week 1 announcement. Okay, and it also says Thursday. Okay, so Thursday. Okay, I think when I was setting up the calendar, that thing seems to bounce around. Let me check and see what my messages were to you. Let's see, this is the one I sent out and someone responded. Okay, let's see what I said here. Yeah, I said the 11th, which is today. Okay, so I'm okay. All right, so now let's get into first thing I want to go over is before I do the announcement is the PowerPoint. I mean, not the PowerPoint, but the syllabus. Okay, and it tells you my name, and it gives you my office hours. And this is my office hours if you pay attention. You can call me, text me any hour of the day except the 25th hour of the day. Call should be 2 L's. Text me or email me any hour of the day except the 25th hour of the day. You can figure that one out. But most of you in this class know me. All right. This is the phone number. If you need to reach me, the best way to do is to call or text me. Make sure when you call or text me, you include your name and the course that you're in. You don't have to say the number. Just say constitutional law. And then I'll know that I'm talking to a student in my constitutional law class, and then tell me what the issue is. This is my email address. This is a reminder that you're required to conduct research for all papers. That means the sole source of your papers cannot be the textbook. You'll lose 2 points for failure to conduct research. All written assignments should be in APA format. That means citations in the body and references at the end. You should also have a cover page, and it should be double spaced. Double space, not single space, but double space. Okay, let's go down. Okay, your assignments, your written assignments, which is equal most of the points. You'll notice that there is no exam in this course. This is a writing assignment. This is pretty much for those of you who are in the bachelor program, because we concentrate heavily on your writing skills. And notice the percentage. Writing is very important to get your written assignments correct. And I will talk to you about that. I'll provide a rubric to guide you. Discussion posts, 120 points or 16 points. And then your live lectures as well. So you get 5 points for each correct key phrase you give, timely. So that equals 750 points or 100%. Perfect grade. Already said this before, but I'll say it again and many times in classes. I concentrate on honor roll and dean list students. That doesn't mean that I don't help every student, but my goal is to help you to get to A, B, because those are the ones that get hired and get the best jobs. That's my goal, to prepare you for that. Sometimes people think I'm a little strict on it, but you'll appreciate it once you get out there and start working and competing against others. C students, I don't have to tell you how to become a C student. You can do that on your own. And you know, that's C plus 79 all the way down to 70%. But you don't want to be content with that. And you certainly don't want to be content with this. So don't call me, text me, email me any hour of the day to ask me how do you get a C in my class or lower. I will not provide that answer to you. Okay, remember what I said earlier. When communicating with me, please include your first name and last name, as well as course title. You don't have to worry about the number. And you should use course messaging tools to communicate with me, such as, like I said again, you could use the cell phone text and to call me as well. If you need accommodations, you get with your accommodations coordinator, who generally is your dean at your campus, and they will let us know, and then we will work towards that. Transferable skills. The school has recognized 6 transferable skills that employers are looking for when they hire people, and so we include these with the assignments that you do. Each and every assignment has communication in it. We test your written communication primarily in this class, and that's why you saw the writing was most of the class. Submitting written assignments properly with the APA format, and also conducting research. And we also want you to be aware that your written communication is important, because you're going to learn that when you become a professional, that many of the documents that you write, police reports, other kind of reports, whatever area you end up in, whether it's probation, parole, and as I said, as a correction officer, law enforcement officer, attorney, whatever you decide you're going to do, paralegal, same thing. Your documents can end up as exhibits in court, and we lawyers use them. And I have used reports that didn't have proper information in it. For example, I won a case because a person had in their report that the event happened on April the 31st. Well, I ended up establishing quite clearly that there was no April 31st by saying this poem, 30 days, has September, April, June, and November, all the rest of 31 except the month of February. They lost the case because it was sloppy communication. Remember, you got to get facts. Accuracy is very, very important. You're going to be dealing with people from various backgrounds, people who speak various languages, and you're going to need some help sometimes in translating the language. But the key thing is be prepared to help. I know Spanish, poquito, which means a little Spanish. So I say hablo poquito en español. I speak a little Spanish, but I know how to communicate with people. I pay attention to their body language. I pay attention to certain things, like nodding the head up and down universally is yes. Nodding it to the side is universally no. Things like that. There are other things you can tell. People shrug their shoulders. Say, I don't know. I don't know. People cross their arms. They're closing themselves off from you generally when you're holding a conversation with them. So you learn that skill, especially when you're dealing with individuals in criminal justice. Critical thinking is so important. Be able to own up to the writing. Since you're going to be doing a lot of writing in this class, it is important for you to recognize that all of your papers are going to be run through Grammarly, and we have a box checked for plagiarism. And what we're doing is we're looking to see if you have more copied materials from your research than you do critical thinking. We're more interested in your critical thinking, but we want your critical thinking to be supported by credible sources. Credible sources. We'll talk about that in information literacy in a minute. So critical thinking. I'm a natural critical thinker because I went to law school. Those of us who studied law, we are natural critical thinkers. Digital fluency. Everything's digital. Everything. Your textbooks, digital. Your classrooms are digital. Your written assignments are, you use digital systems, like all your written assignments will be, with the exception of one, I believe it is, will be a Word document. And we will talk about those that are not. But it is very important that you don't submit your documents in the wrong format. Follow the format that's in the module, and you'll learn that will help you out. But I've become fluent with digital systems. I know how to use all Excel spreadsheets. I know how to use PowerPoints. I know how to use Word, PDFs. I'm a little bit rusty at Publisher, but we don't use that a whole lot. But it's important for you to recognize we're in a digital society. All your reports are done on computers, laptops, and things like that. Very rarely are they done by hand anymore. So you need to be fluent in that area. Diversity. We work with people from various backgrounds, various religious beliefs, sexual persuasion, gay, straight, LGBT, transgender. We work with people, and we respect people for who they are. We don't put labels on them. They're people just like you are. I always remind people, treat people well, that if you were to cut them and the blood is red, then that means that they should be treated the same as you. I don't care if you're African American or Caucasian, if you're from a country that speaks Spanish, or if you, for example, maybe Puerto Rican as opposed to Mexican, or you're from South America. The key thing is that everybody should be treated with dignity and respect. We at this school have a diversity and inclusion council, which I'm a member of, and we try to make sure that we adhere to that, because that's the real world that we're living in, our communities. I prefer living in a community that is diverse, and have people, because we learn from each other as well. Teamwork. You'll be working with individuals from various areas, lawyers, doctors. You'll be working with law enforcement. You'll be working with probation, parole, correction officers, uh, other individuals, sometimes teachers. The bottom line is that you work in teams to operate in criminal justice. You do teamwork in this class by way of the discussion posts, because you respond to the classmates' posts as well. Ethics. Ethics is so important. I always say that never take the shortcuts. Follow the processes to do what you need to do. Learn how to do them properly. Follow the rules. Don't try to short circuit them. For example, when taking these tests that you don't have in this class, they're usually closed book tests, and you can't have sticky notes and stuff like that in their time. So what I always say, if you're, and that's why plagiarism is so important, that means that you've taken somebody else's materials and adopted as your own, and not giving them credit for it, or switch some words around. You'll hear a little bit about that in the academic integrity video that I will be sharing with you in a little bit. And so an unethical student is an unethical professional, and your career could be short-lived, and you can sometimes reach a stage where you find yourself in jail, behind bars, or unemployed. Professional responsibility, there are codes that we all have to abide by. As a lawyer, we had the canons of ethics, and we were held to that standard. All individuals, whether hypocritical oath, if you're a doctor, you have other oaths in every area that you work in, and you want to satisfy those, and we want you to be professional. Student once said that I seem to grade students as if they're professionals. Well, if I wasn't teaching you how to be professional, then you would have a point. But my goal is to teach you how to be a professional while you're in school. And when you make mistakes, you get your grades reflected. My comments will try to put you back on track again. Professional responsibility is important. Finally, information literacy. You have to use credible sources. You'll hear that term over and over. That's what citations and references are, but they must be credible. One source that we never allow is, and if I had somebody here, I would ask them, it's Wikipedia. We never use Wikipedia. It is a word-based system, and anybody can come along and change that. So we don't use that. And we make sure that we use credible sources to support our positions. When practicing law, standing in front of judges or hearing officers or boards, I had to produce sources outside of my own knowledge where I had to do research, and I had to make sure I provided ways for people to be able to go to the material that I received my material from, such as citations. Back in the days when I had it, we had a thing called footnotes that we used to use as well. And there are various methods, but here we use APA, and we have sources to help you, or resources to help you if you need help. And at this juncture, you should not. And so you'll have a chance to deal with each of these issues in your written assignments and performance in this class. Students may submit work up to 7 days after the deadline, but each day you'll lose 10%. So what does that mean? If you have a perfect paper and you submit it on Sunday, the due date, you submit that same paper on Monday, it's going to be a 90. If you submit it on Tuesday, it's going to be an 80. You get my drift? By Wednesday, it's a 70. You're in the C area. Okay? And then Thursday, that's only 4 days. You're in the 60s. So you will have gotten a grade that's less than passing before 7 days. You will still get some points. So it's important for you to get your assignments in on time. Okay? I do not ask students to complete alternate assignments. I usually try to work with people concerning their deadlines. So beware that I'm going to come back to online discussions in just a minute. But this, it says in the third part, instructors may waive the late penalty or time frames in case of extenuating circumstances as determined by the faculty. So that means that not your dean or your advisor or anybody else. I'm the first resort, the last resort, and the only resort that you can do. And I am pretty flexible. Those of you who are in this class and had me before know where I stand. I'm very, very, very liberal when it comes to paying attention to you. But don't try to take advantage of me, and I will help you out. My goal is not to see you fail, but to have you result in what I refer to as student success. Very important. Student success equals success in life and employment opportunities for the future. You don't just take any jobs. So that's, but you have to let me know. The best way to let me know is not by email, to be honest with you, but text me or call me at that number, 630-660-8480. It will show up right here on my phone, and I will be able to respond to you. And trust me, I'm up late at night. I was talking to a student, 2 or 3 students in the last term, real late at night. So no problem. Now, let's talk about discussion posts. they conclude at the end of the current module. Discussion posts made after that will not be accepted. Now, let me explain some rule that I have for you, though, that most professors don't. Your discussion posts generally are due by 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time on Saturday. That's your reply, except this week. Both are due because we didn't start early enough. But generally, weeks 2 through 6, your initial post will be due Tuesdays. If you submit your post late, you will lose a point for each day. Now, if you submit a post by Saturday, it will be late. But if you submit a reply post by Saturday, it will not be late and you will get the points, assuming that it has good content. Don't just give me little short statements. Demonstrate some critical thinking in your discussion posts, both reply and initial posts. And you're going to see that when we do discussions, we have what we call posts first, which means you won't be able to see any discussion post anyone else's post until you post your initial post. That's to keep people from taking someone else's post, changing around a little bit, or getting their ideas. They can do their response independently. Now, I do want to let you know that if you submit your reply post on Sunday, yes, I said Sunday, you will be late. But if you've submitted initial posts before that, whether it's Tuesday through Saturday, you will get credit for the second post, but you will lose a point because it will be late. And that's something that really most professors don't do, but I do it. I give you a mulligan, as I call it in golf, give you a break there. Now, what you need to be aware of is that if you submit both of your posts that Sunday, you're not going to get any points. All right. So that's all I want to say about that. I have students that sometimes I give extensions on assignments, but I generally explain to them that that does not apply to discussion posts. It generally does not. There has to be an extreme situation before I'll allow that. Extreme situation. Okay. So that's the late assignment policy. I won't talk about the incomplete grade policy. The academic integrity policy, you should read that yourself, become familiar with it. If you have questions about it, you can run them by me and I'll be happy to. But it's pretty self-explanatory. All right. So that's the syllabus that we have in this class in terms of operating. Now, let's get to the announcements. So I have sources in here that can help you with your announcements. These will all be up here. This is to help you with APA. If you were to click on this, it takes you to the page for the toolbox, and it tells you how to help the basics, preventing plagiarism, setting up your paper properly, in-text citations, along with references. And it tells you how to use this. I will tell you this up front. You need to be aware that I am going to be very on point about this. When you cite a case in your papers, I want the official court citation. Don't use Oyez. You don't use fine law or things like that. You can use articles and things or journals, but when you cite a case like Miranda versus Arizona, which will be one of the cases that you'll be dealing with in here in this course, Gideon versus Wainwright, give me the correct court case citation. And it usually starts out with a number, and then it goes, if it's U.S. Supreme Court, which most of these are, it'll say the number, US, then it have another number. The first number is the volume of the United States Supreme Court publication, and it tells the page that it starts on, and then in parentheses, it shows the year that the case was rendered. And that's very important. Now, listen to me good. If you cite that case more than once, you don't have to always cite it that way. But at least the first time that you cite it, that's the proper thing dealing with APA. You make sure you cite it fully from the beginning, and then afterwards you know the methods that you use as far as APA. If you do the whole thing all the way through, that's okay, but I'm just telling you right now. So just remember, when you see a comment that you went from a perfect paper, and your paper would have been better if you cited the case or the statute, then you will understand why I'm telling you that, because I'm telling you this up front. All right. We'll come back to the academic integrity video. Let's take a look at the announcement video. And this is the welcome one, which told you about the course. And it tells you a little bit about me in the very beginning. And it tells you things that you need to do. You saw this at the beginning. I'm not going to go over it. It tells you too, as I discovered earlier, that the lecture for today lasts an hour and a half. Weeks 2, 3, 4, and 5. I think it's actually 2 through 6 lectures, because there is a 6th lecture. Will take place every Monday from 7 to 8 p.m. So beginning the 15th, which is Monday. So they'll be on Mondays. So I'm going to fix this later on. Okay, here is a story about me that many of you already know from other classes. It's something to encourage you, to help you, those who you face adversity. I've had students already to let me know about that in their lives. But if you click on this link, it will open up a YouTube video that I did that lasts about over an hour. Sit down and listen to it, and you will hear me talk about my issues that I had to navigate to get to where I am. So you want to make sure that you see that. I'm told that after that, it puts up some videos from my church, which, you know, they're there. That's the way it works. But at any rate, this is where you find out about me in terms of statements, okay? Learning about my life and how I have ran across adversity and how it strengthened me rather than weakened me. Okay, let's do the academic integrity video. A lot of times I have trouble getting the sound in here. This is Dean John Malatic. He is the head of the Learning Center people. In our program, Bethany Marston is the Learning Center coordinator for criminal justice, and Dennis Johnson is our librarian. And when you go to the library and learning resources, in the resources tab, which you should know where that is, you'll be able to find that. So I'm going to take my headset off, and I'm going to also put closed caption on, so that here's what I'm going to tell you. Listen to it as much as you can, but read what is said to help you out. Okay, and then I'll put my set back on in just a minute. Okay. Making sure that Okay, let's take that off. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get this started. I know it's hard to hear, but read the captions.
Textbook, internet resource, or other material without giving the original creator credit, failing to put quoted works in quotation marks, or using someone else's ideas in your essays, but changing a few of the words to make it sound like the words are your own. Plagiarism is not just about written words and ideas. It's possible to plagiarize images, graphs, coding, or video as well. So how can you avoid plagiarism? Cite your sources, both in the body of your paper as in-text citations and on your references page. Whenever you want to use words, images, video, or ideas that were created by another person, you should cite that person appropriately as the source of that information.
But how does academic integrity relate to the work world? Isn't it just a college thing?
No. Integrity in the workplace starts with good practices and skills built while you are a student. Would you turn in a project document to your manager as your own when someone else wrote it? Not if you want to keep your job. Individuals can be reprimanded or even fired from their job for plagiarism. Following academic integrity guidelines while you are in school builds those skills and ethical practices that carry through to the workforce.
Okay, I understand how they're connected, but what do I do if I need more help?
If you have questions on the academic integrity policy, consult your course syllabus, talk with your instructor or dean, and if you need assistance with EPA citation style or how to avoid plagiarism, contact the Rasmussen library team through our live chat or schedule a research appointment on our library website or through the resources tab of your course. If you would like APA tutoring, schedule an appointment with one of our peer tutors on the course resources tab.
Okay. All right. So that's the academic integrity video. Again, I switched the speakers, so maybe you heard it a little better. But you can always go back and listen to it yourself because it's always going to be there. It only takes about 3 or 4 minutes, but it's very important for you to be aware that it's one way of staying out of trouble. Remember, it talks about citing sources. Great, very important. I already talked about that as well. So let's look at the week 1 announcement. So for this week, Foundations of Constitutional Law is the topic of discussion. And you're going to read chapter 4 of the textbook. I've sent you the PowerPoints. Each week you will get PowerPoints that will help you to review for your written assignments. And then we go over these activities: substantive and procedural due process, history of Bill of Rights, judicial review, and then there's a knowledge check for you. Okay. And then there's the link right there to the lecture. I thought it was hyperlinked, but I guess it's not. You just copy and paste it. But of course, those of you here, you already know it. Initial posts and discussion posts for this week, judicial review are both due Saturday at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. Finally, complete the written assignment, Constitutional Foundation for Justice Procedures, and we'll talk about that in detail in just a few. And it's due Sunday, the 14th, by 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. Okay. And then make sure you follow the rubric. I will be talking about the rubric every week. I will be pointing out to you what I want you to pay attention to in the rubric and what I want you to ignore. And then this tells you when the lecture is taking place right now, and it gives the link as well. Okay, and then there's adversity is a springboard to success. If you look at that video I shared, you will learn what that really means. So each week you will see one of these. This is week 1 announcement. Now, before I get into the modules, I do want to make sure that I take you to over here again where you find the syllabus. You have tutoring down here. Okay, and then this is what I wanted you to see. See this second one, library resources? When you click on that, it opens up a whole myriad. Remember you saw this earlier? If you click on any of these, it will tell you APA, the writing lab, it tells you Noodle tools, it'll give you more details on transferable skills, how to find videos, ebooks, tutoring, articles, guides, and everything. The webinar series. So how to meet with a librarian, how to set up tutoring as well. So very important, very important. One of the things that you should be aware is that when it comes to guides, is that it is, okay, so if you go to justice studies, let me show you, click on that, and it leads you to the justice study guide, and it helps you specifically with criminal justice, and it deals with tutoring, it deals with law enforcement, and various courses. All right, so you have things that, the bottom line is that we have more than enough tools to help you out to be able to find information when you do your research. We encourage you to use the library for finding articles and sources to support, because they've all been properly vetted, and so you don't have to worry about it. This explains how Grammarly works, and everything that you need. So you can go to the online library. Research tools, it tells you how to find topics by subject. Let's say, for example, if you're looking for the criminal justice, then you can go here and then put in topics that you want to help you find articles and things of that nature. So we have plenty of resources that we provide for you to make sure that you are aware of, but you use that library resources tab. Okay. All right. So you're aware of the syllabus, and then here's the tutoring. If you need tutoring, this will tell you link that, and it will tell you that we create a task to get you as students to deal with, and these are some I've done in the past where individuals had Grammarly issues and I had to refer them. Okay, so that's the faculty dashboard. That's how I do it. All right, and that's it. So now that covers everything except how the module is going to work for this week. Oh, I do want to tell you that in discussions, there is the student lounge. That's where you guys communicate with each other. Okay, and there are a few people who have posted things in here. But there is also, all the way at the bottom, a course chat. That's for me, as should be clicking on that. I don't know. Oh, there it is. Okay, now when you click on that, it opens it up and it tells you all about me, a little blurb with my family pictures, and then also it tells a little bit about myself. There's me getting my law degree, a young 28-year-old kid. And then there's a little something to help you, a mnemonic based on the word lawyers to be successful. Again, it has my email. Notice it doesn't have the 2 on here, but here it has my personal email as well. And then there's my phone number there. That you won't really use that much, my office number. Okay. So I wanted to bring that to you, and then you can, nobody has said anything, but you can respond in here as well. If you respond in the other, I will not see it. Okay. So now let's get into, for the next little over half an hour, constitutional foundations for criminal justice procedures. And we're going to talk about the written assignment first. Let's get that laid out for you so you're clear on what you need to do to maximize and get a good grade for this. So here you are. You got this information that's given to you. And you read this. Then develop. Now this one here is the exception. This is the one that you do a PowerPoint. Now listen to me good. Please hear me. You're going to, in 10 to 15 slides with speaker notes. Speaker notes, that's where people mess up. Speaker notes are at the bottom, not in the body, but at the bottom of each slide, there's a space for that. Give me some detailed notes and about something to add. It's like almost like footnotes. And so you're going to, in this, differentiate between due process and substantive due process, discuss the historical development of the Bill of Rights, summarize the common rights associated with the Bill of Rights, define judicial review, and provide practical examples. And then these are the slide requirements. Slides with the name, date, course, and title of your presentation. That's one. Closing slide with bullet points that summarize the main ideas. Each slide must contain speaker notes. Provide credible sources in APA format. Remember, I already talked about that. Citations in the body. And there should be a reference page at the end. All right. Do not copy and paste material other than brief quotes from court cases, demonstrating in your own words each criteria point. Okay, and this tells you if you need help, where to go. All right, now here is the rubric that lays it out. Very important. I tell my students, try not to pay attention to this column, or this column. Do you want to pay attention to unsatisfactory? I don't think so. Emerging and proficiency. But what you want to do is concentrate on this column all the way down. So for each area that I mentioned, substantive due process and due process, you're going to satisfy these words, this information in here, dealing with the Bill of Rights. Make sure you have credible sources citing as well. Judicial review. All right. General slide requirements I already told you. 10 to 15 slides with an intro slide and information, outstanding closing slide, and summary and comprehensive speaker notes in each slide. Credible sources. I already told you about that throughout the PowerPoint. Not just one place, two places. Remember I told you if it's a court case, I want you to cite it. Professional language, no spelling errors, and so forth. That's what I want you to do. I don't even want you to read this. Don't even read this. Read this. If I could, I would delete this, but the reason why I don't is because when I go into the grade book, if you fall short of this and I put you in one of these columns, I will put a note at the bottom explaining why you fell short and didn't go to the column. Okay? Very, very, very important. But look at the difference between unsatisfactory and emerging. Not so good. So you want to stay away from that. Okay? And that's it for that written assignment. Each week, I will be covering this as well. Your discussion posts, again, like that are due Saturday. And this is your overview. In your initial post, provide a definition and explanation of judicial review. We'll talk about that tonight. Identify a landmark case where judicial review played a prominent role. Summarize your selected case. Explain the impact of judicial review upon the selected case, and then your reply post, select a post different from yours. Okay? Remember, we had a post first. Discussion activity is hidden until the student posts a response. When it says response, it doesn't mean reply. Response is your initial post as well as your reply post, but you have to submit. Your first one is going to end up being your initial post. The live classroom lecture and recording under this section. This tells you, if you clicked on this, where to find the recorded lecture. That shouldn't be there. That should not be there. What should be here is actually the link, but we haven't. We're doing that right now, so don't worry about that. All right, but you have the link already. Your live classroom lecture session is where you put your key phrase to get your 5 points. Okay. And it tells you that I'll conduct a live session, and it tells you how to log in. You know how to log in already to those. Okay. So let me see if that did that during week 2. I'm just curious. I want to see, because if so, I got to go back and fix that link. What should be in there? Yeah, this is what's supposed to be in the first one. This one right here. And that's what's in every week. And when you clicked on this, it gets you to the live lecture. Then I change it over, but it's okay that it's like it is now, because it doesn't really matter. All right, so let's talk about the history. So the Bill of Rights, known as the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. And in each of these, they were the original Bill of Rights going back to 1791. And it dealt with the rights that individuals have. Freedom of speech, as you know, the First Amendment. The second, as you know, is dealing with guns and weapons. The Third Amendment, um, it deals with, I can't think of it off the top of my head, but the Fourth Amendment, search and seizure. The Fifth Amendment, right to remain silent and self-incrimination. And these are just a few, but you'll be able to see each of these rights and how they've shaped the law. Notice what I said before. Now, see, this is not what I'm talking about. Like the Miranda rights, which we're going to talk about. The right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You have a right to an attorney, and the rest of it we'll talk about in more detail. But before Miranda, it was not unconstitutional for police to use violent and inhumane third-degree interrogation techniques to produce confessions. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. One of my law professors, Fred Enbow, that I had in my first year of law school, which was 75 in criminal law, the first course in criminal law that I took in law school. He was the author of the techniques in a book called Interrogation and Confessions with a guy named John Reed. And these were the techniques that were used by law enforcement at that time. And the Supreme Court specifically mentioned in the footnotes of the full case, if you ever look at it, how they referred to these techniques as not so good. And so as a result of that, Miranda came in and he felt personally maligned, my professor. So the Miranda rights are, and then he spent time after that, every time a case came up for dealing with the Miranda issues, he wanted to submit a brief to overturn it. Of course, you know, it didn't happen. So, but it was, it's very important for Miranda. Almost everybody knows about the Miranda warnings even before they take a class. So anyway, so the amendments that we deal with primarily, well, you'll see. Okay, here's the First Amendment dealing with the freedom of speech. The second deal with guns. Notice it skipped the third, but the Fourth Amendment, search and seizure, which we're going to use a whole lot. The Fifth Amendment, self-incrimination, and that's where the Miranda case, again, their citation is not exactly correct. I wish they would have used the full one, those who put this course together, because in your papers, I don't want you to use it this way. I want you to use it the way I told you. The Sixth Amendment is the right to counsel. The Eighth Amendment is cruel and unusual punishment, which deal with the death penalty and other things. And so then the First Amendment, we don't spend a whole lot of time in this course. If you look in here, let's see, did they do it? Okay, like for example, you see this, they use United States versus Robinson, 414 U.S. 218 73. That's what I was talking about as an example of how you're correct citations. Gant, the same thing. I don't see him doing it with Miranda, though I thought I would. But those are the rights. So our main focus will be the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 8th, okay, as we go along. Now, so summary of rights. We talk about that now, and it's going to be duplicitous in some sections here. You'll see in this little thing here that you can start these to review what we just talked about a few minutes ago, and it will tell you about the first. It lists them all, but the First Amendment deals with the freedom of speech and religion. The second, right to bear arms. The third, prohibits soldiers during peace or war from being kept in private residence without the consent of the owner. That's why we don't have that. We don't use that anymore. The fourth, unreasonable search and seizures, which we'll spend a lot of time on. The Fifth Amendment, which primarily when we're dealing with Miranda, the right to remain silent and things of that nature, okay, prohibits double jeopardy and things like that. Next, so we deal with the sixth, that's the speedy trial, and we'll talk about that, and the right to counsel and an impartial jury. I love juries. I did very well with juries. Over 90% of my cases were not guilties in front of juries. The Seventh Amendment, we don't deal with that, provides the right to a trial in civil suits where amounts all go above $20. Excessive fine, bail, and cruel and unusual punishment. We usually get into this with death penalty and sentencing with individuals. The ninth, all rights not listed in the Constitution belong to the people, not the government. And then the 10th Amendment, it recognizes any power not delegated by the federal government by the Constitution to reserve for the states. Now, what you should be aware of is that the Bill of Rights was applied to states, and we'll talk about that, by way of the 14th Amendment. Before, when the original Bill of Rights were written, that was for the federal government level. But state courts didn't apply those until the 14th Amendment, and you'll see what I'm talking about when we get to Module 2. We're going to talk about that starting next week. So let's talk about judicial review. What is judicial review? I will tell you up front that the leading case of judicial review is cited right here in terms of recognizing how it started. Marbury versus Madison, going back to 1803. There were Thomas Jefferson and John Adams. Thomas Jefferson and John Adams. Jefferson beat Adams to become the third president. Before he took office, Adams, they passed the Judiciary Act of 1801, which created new courts. And the judgeships were delivered. Well, Madison refused to deliver the commissions, and newly appointed Justice of the Peace, William Marbury, petitioned the court to compel the delivery. The court concluded that Madison's refusal to deliver the commissions was not legal. However, the Judiciary Act of 1789 that allowed Marbury to bring the claim to the Supreme Court was unconstitutional. Therefore, the Judiciary Act of 1789 was declared to be constitutional because it could not merely be modified by Congress. And so what happened is the Marbury versus Madison case established judicial review. That is something that you should know when you're doing your papers. If you don't use this case, then you didn't adequately address it. And the proper court citations for Marbury versus Madison should be available. I'm going to double check because it's so old, but I think it is. Give me a minute. Yeah, it is 5 USC 5 US 137. 5 US 137. And it was decided in 1803. Okay, so that's the proper citation that I'm going to be looking for. 5 US 137 and the year 1803. Okay. So in this famous case, there's a famous line that came forth that we all know as political science majors and as law students, that it is the courts who say what the law is. They're the arbiters or interpreters. And we know that the highest court of the land is the United States Supreme Court. As they've been in the news recently about a decision that they're making, that they may make. It hasn't reached that far, but I believe it is going to reach it, regarding executive privilege. I remember when I was in college, dealing with the issue of the executive privilege. I might have been in law school, but dealing with with Nixon versus, I'm trying to remember what's his name, Jaworski, or I can't remember. But anyway, the point of the matter is, it was a case that dealt with executive privilege back when Richard Nixon was president, which he didn't do too well in, and he ended up resigning. So anyway, the judicial review session is that cases are decided by the court, and that what happens is that it goes sometimes as high as the United States Supreme Court. Very important cases. One that they cite here, Loving versus Virginia in 1967, was a key. And oh, by the way, you see now at the foot, the reference, there it is right there, Marbury versus Madison. There's the proper site there. But they should also have put that in the body somewhere as well, but I don't know why they didn't. But at any rate, Loving versus Virginia was a case that said that it is constitutional for a person to marry someone of a different race. Prior to that in Virginia, it was illegal, and Loving was arrested, him and his wife. He was white and she was black. They did a movie called Loving that some of you may be familiar with as well. But these are some examples of rights not expressed within the Constitution, but came through equal protection or due process and have been granted by way of judicial review. So what judicial review amounts to, when it's an application, is a review of case law that can result in the United States Supreme Court making a landmark decision like Loving versus Virginia, Brown versus the Board of Education in '54, and cases like that. Okay. That it happened in Miranda and all the other cases as well. All right. So that's where we got judicial review. And now you know what it is all about. Here are some cases that we give you that can help you. Five cases that overturn unconstitutional laws. Harper versus Virginia, Loving versus Virginia. I just got through, versus Virginia Board of Elections, Loving versus Virginia, Roe v. Wade, which everybody's familiar with, Leclerc versus Galileo, and Obergefell versus Hodges. Now, you can learn more about these. One of my favorite ones is not in here. It was Brown versus the Board of Education, which said that separate but equal was not constitutional. But this case overturned a Virginia law that required voters to pay $100.50 to cast their votes. We got a lot of those kind of things happening now. We got some things happening all across the country in this past year. The poll deprived of indigent residents, deprived them of their right to vote. So saying that you got to pay to vote, well, now we got other hoops to go through that we're dealing with. Loving versus Virginia overturned that prohibited interracial marriages and legalized them, as I said earlier. And Roe v. Wade, everybody, I don't have to tell you about that. This one you might not be as familiar, overturned a Missouri law prohibiting signs on private property. Overturned laws prohibiting same-sex marriage, which legalized same-sex marriage. But then, you know, the statute, the Supreme Court, not the Supreme Court, but Civil Rights Act that changed that and now allowed same-sex marriages. So these are just a few. But like I said, Brown versus Board of Education is one of my favorite one. And then my other one is this one, Loving. Okay. And then finally, the knowledge check. So we began. Which amendment originally applied due process to the federal government? Was it the 4th, 5th, 6th, or 14th? To the federal government. Do you think it's the 4th? Let's see. I know the answer to that. That's not right. Try again. Was it the 5th? Nope. Oh, it was the 5th. Okay, I'm thinking of something else. The 14th Amendment was to the states. The 5th Amendment is the correct answer. The 4th Amendment relates to probable cause and search and seizure, which you should know that. The 6th is trial rights, and the 14th Amendment applies the same to the states. So the key thing is for you to remember is that the 5th Amendment applied to the federal government before the 14th Amendment. A civilian is challenging a law that they believe is in violation of the Constitution. This is an example of what? Substantive due process. Procedural justice is another phrase for due process. Describes due process most accurately aligned with procedural due process. That is the right to face your accusers and things of that nature. So you can go over each of these. Oh wait, which one of these? Which one of these deals with double jeopardy? The 4th, the 2nd, the 6th, or the 5th? Remember, this is search and seizure. This is 2nd. This is the right to counsel in speedy trials, but it's also the same place where you deal with double jeopardy. Okay, and you can go through each of these, and they will help you to get it. All right, so that's it for tonight. I will be dealing with the key phrase, which I will give you. One that is important. All of them are, but for this week, I'm going to focus on something that we just got through talking about not long ago, judicial review. Give me judicial review for your points for this week. Okay, so this is going to be an exciting course, I think you're going to find, dealing with your constitutional issues. And sometimes you get them twisted up, but I can tell you one thing that you will learn very clearly by the time this course is over is that you will totally understand how to not violate the rights of individuals when you're working in the criminal justice field. That's one of my main focuses that I'll be dealing with over the next 5 weeks or so. All right, so I'm going to say good night to you. I'll see you next Monday, the 15th at 7 p.m. Hopefully those of you will come out. It's 7 o'clock. Used to be 8:30 p.m., but now it's 7 o'clock. So come out and be with me, and I'll see you then. Stay safe. If you need to reach me, you know how to do it. Bye.